Hello, everyone. Welcome to another riveting episode of the Elections and Rules Committee. My name is Jeremiah Ellison, and I am the chair of this committee. With me at the dais are council members Johnson, Warsami, Schrader, Fletcher, Kano. I see Gordon walking in here, and Bender. And we are a quorum of the committee. And so our first item on the agenda is a public hearing on the proposed appointment of Crawle to the city's Ethical Practices Board. I want to point out to my colleagues that this is a unique board in the city's enterprise. We don't actually make appointments to the Ethical Practices Board, but we do conduct a public hearing on the nominees proposed for appointments. Appointments to the Ethical Practices Board are actually made by the board's appointing committee, which consists of the Chief Judge of Hennepin County, the Dean of the University of Minnesota Law School, and the Dean of the St. Thomas Law School. This preserves the independence of this board. The appointing committee has submitted Mr. Crawle's name for a seat on the Ethical Practices Board. Here to present the matter to us is the city's ethics officer, managing city attorney, Susan Trammell.
Good afternoon, Chair Ellison, members of the committee. The appointing committee, which Chair Ellison just described to you, has made a recommendation that it would like to appoint Crawle to the Ethical Practices Board. Mr. Crawle is here to speak to you and give you a bit about his background. But before we go to that, I want to state on the record that the sending of the letter that I sent to each and every one of you about this appointment by the appointing panel triggered a 30-day comment period. That comment period will be open until February 6th, and comments can be sent to ethicsofficer@minneapolismn.gov. And any of the comments that are received today at the public hearing or during that open comment period will be forwarded to the appointment panel for their consideration before they finalize the appointment of Mr. Crawle. And so with that, I'd like to invite Mr. Crawle up to give you a few words about his background.
Mr. Crawle, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Ellison and members of the committee. Thank you for your time in considering this recommended appointment. I'm very excited to be appointed. I'm interested in the position for at least a few reasons. First of all, it's very interesting to me, this whole area, ethics. It's actually part of what I do now as an attorney. I'm an attorney at Winthrop & Weinstein. It's a firm here in downtown Minneapolis. And some of my work actually involves claims that relate to code of ethics violations. So I'm conversant in these types of things. Often it'll be an industry-related claim, but always there's always some ethical aspect to it. In addition to that kind of work, I've served on other boards throughout the Minneapolis area. One such board that lends me some experience for this role is the University Student Legal Services Board of Directors. I don't know if anyone is familiar with it. It's a small student board of directors at the University of Minnesota, but I sit on that board as the Hennepin County Bar Association representative. And there is a special subcommittee of that board that deals with ethical accusations against the attorneys of the legal services organization at the University of Minnesota, which represents actually all students at the University of Minnesota. So I have been involved in these types of confidential processes of a serious nature involving allegations of violations of the code, and have some experience with that as part of that subcommittee. And in addition, my background, actually, when I was a University of Minnesota student, I was also on that board, not on the special subcommittee then, but I studied business and philosophy, and my research, my honors thesis, in fact, was university funded. It was all about codes of ethics. It was about how do you maximize adherence to code of ethics, what types of things matter. And I'd like to bring some of that expertise to some of the Ethical Practices Board's work as well. And since then, I obviously went to law school and now practice as an attorney. In addition to just my interest in this area and some of my experience in this area, I feel that I could bring my talents to the board and the work that pertains to the good of the city and the public that lives in the city. And I feel this might be a very good way for me to share my talents and try to do some good. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for your coming service or your possible coming service. So really appreciate it. Are there any questions from my colleagues, for Mr. Crawle or Ms. Trammell? Okay, looks like there is none. So I will open the public hearing, and if there's any members of the public, of which there are so many here today. But are there any members of the public who would like to come speak? Come forward now. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And again, I will note that there is no official action to be required for this appointment. Like the record to reflect that I've been joined by council members Cunningham and Goodman. All right, so item number 2. Final agenda item is a resolution approving the appointment of election judges for the presidential nomination primary, with further authorization for the elections director to appoint additional election judges, if and as necessary to meet the city's staffing needs. This is a routine action that is required under state law to authorize the appointment of election judges. I will go ahead and move approval of the resolution presented by staff. Is there any discussion from my colleagues? All right. With that, I'll call a vote for approval of the resolution to appoint election judges for the presidential nomination primary. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and that matter will be submitted to the full council at its regular meeting on Friday this week with a positive recommendation from this committee. With that, seeing no further business before us, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.